8 very difficult for me to make sometimes. So we're doing everything, and I like to do everything live. So we are on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on several platforms. So you can check this out on the podcast and everything. Visit us at safetywars.com. We have links to everything out there. So, what's the big story tonight? I tell you what, we got lots of big stories tonight. The main one is right over here in the northeastern United States. And the ongoing story continues to be the fires and the smoke from the wildfires. That is basically it. That's what we're doing. That's all of this stuff going here. I mean, so let me get back up a little bit. So over in Canada, in the Quebec region, just over the border from New York, and everyone's, one of the things is, and we laugh about this in New York, and it's not the people's fault. We're not laughing at them. It's just laughing at the situation. We have a situation here where everyone thinks that New York is a small state. So, for example, my home state, the sacred soil of New Jersey, we have, you can get from one side of the state to the other side of the state. You can start at High Point and go down to Cape May, the tip of Cape May, which escapes me what that's called, but you go from High Point all the way down to Cape May, and that's a common motorcycle ride. That's also a common bicycle ride that people do. Bicycle ride is like 2 or 3 days. Some people do it in 1 day. God bless you. Motorcycle ride, they go from there down to Cape May. You can make it in 1 day. If we were going to go all the way out to Long Island, right, Orient Point, Long Island, all the way out there, and if we were going to go over to Erie, New York, I think Erie's in Pennsylvania, but that area of Pennsylvania that is around New York, it would probably be a 2-day drive, right? That with traffic, maybe 3 days. So people think, oh, well, you're in, so up in the end of the north end of the New York Thruway here, the highway to the north that we always mention on this show, about like a 6-hour, 7-hour, 8-hour drive. And, people, it's a huge amount of real estate here. So what ends up happening is okay. So what happens is people think, oh, well, even here, they think, well, that fire up in Canada that started 6 weeks ago, that burned 3.3 million hectares of land, right, more larger than the state of Maryland. Well, that's far away. And we thought, hey, it's far away, not really going to impact us. But there were some murmurings there that, hey, we may be impacted all the way down south in the New York City area for this, right? And so 6 weeks ago, there were massive wildfires across Canada the size of Maryland. My question is how much greenhouse gases did that release? Right? The so-called greenhouse gases. And how does that compare with other sources? And what happened was it blew all the way down. The wind took it all the way down to south of New York City. Let's see. What's the furthest extent? I'm sorry, I'm Googling this. With it because we got another story here of smoke, right? So of smoke, furthest extent of smoke from Canada. So it goes all the way down. Boom, boom, boom. How far? It's going basically all the way down to Virginia Beach on the East Coast. Pretty far down. Right, and the Virginia Beach is about 9 miles away from here. So we're looking at like a 16-hour drive from the New York Canadian border all the way down to Virginia. That's a lot of real estate. And also the airflow. I'm looking at the map right here. I mean, it's going out west too, as far west as Wisconsin. And I know you're shocked that we know about real estate here, right? And Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, all those areas impacted by these. So this is going to do a couple of things. Number one is that we're going to have beautiful sunsets for the near future, right? Let's face it, I like the sunset. Number one. Number two is that we're going to have, at least for what we're looking at the next 3 or 4 days, impacts to ambient air quality. Smallest into larger impact. How does this impact your work area? I want to give a good shout out to the teachers over at Woodglen Elementary School in New City, New York, Clarkstown Central School District, because they made this into a learning opportunity. And my daughter came home all excited. Hey, Daddy, we were doing this, and we were doing this, this with them. And I said, oh, wow. And she says, Mommy said that you know something about this. I said, I actually do. So we did a little tutorial on the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for particulate matter. And then I noticed, I said, well, let's see where the nearest weather station is. I said, I think there's one right in town, right down the street here. And sure enough, the ambient air quality station, the monitoring by New York Department of Environmental Conservation, is less than a mile away from where I live. So we went out there, we shot a little video, put it on Instagram and Facebook on the where it is and thing. And I showed it. Well, I said, look, so that's collecting data out there, and it's going on the internet. It's being reported online, and everything's good. And I said, we'll take a picture. We'll send it over to your teacher, and I posted it. So this is good. Educators need to go out there and use this as a learning opportunity for this. And it's okay, we have the negative thing. For example, they had school field day today where they have fun and games outside. That was canceled because they were afraid of, these, I will talk about the readings here and what they mean. They're afraid of things going on, asthma attacks. They have people with health issues. The project that I'm today doing safety training on, we're still continuing safety training at the project. For HAZWOPER, Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. If you're interested, give us a call. Drop me a line. You go out there, and they canceled work. Why? In Newark, New Jersey, I mean, it was like yellow sky. It reminded me of the 1970s, growing up in central New Jersey, where over New York City, there was just this pall, this smoke and hot haze that pretty much has gone away. So if you want to know how air quality was back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, early 80s, you go out there and today, that's how the air quality was in a lot of the parts of the United States. So we've done a lot to clean that up. So this is a learning opportunity on many things. So we got to introduce the kids, my daughter and other kids in the class, to all this stuff here. Now, we got phones going off and everything else. I'm on the air, people. Don't you know that? Now, we're going to take a brief break here, a commercial break, and we're going to be right back at you talking about this stuff. The views. Oh, hit the wrong button again. I can't get this straightened out.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hopkins Sheldon Primus with The Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Pozell with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy.
Yes, and Jessica made her video debut on Reels today with Daddy also. On Facebook and Instagram. You can check us out there. Jim Pozell, P as in Peter, O-E, S as in Sam, L as in Larry. All right. So, what's some of the history here behind this? And I remember 30 years ago in school, there was always a thing with PM10, PM2.5, and standards and everything else. What are they? And we'll talk about that. But how did we get here? This is a story from CBS. That probably encapsulates this whole thing pretty succinctly. Over the past 6 weeks, massive wildfires have spread across Canada, causing mass evacuations and burning through more than 3.3 million hectares of land, larger than the state of Maryland. While Canada wildfire season runs from May through October, such destruction this early in the season is rare. 1 month in, Canada is on track to having its most destructive wildfire season in history. Climate change. Oh, we always got to talk about that. Climate change driven extreme temperatures and drought have created a tinderbox. And the Canadian crisis has not been limited to the Great North. So why is Canada burning? Warm and dry conditions are likely kindling for wildfires. Much of Canada, like the rest of North America, has experienced heat and drought recently. And going on, Canada experienced its hottest day ever in Lytton, British Columbia, hit 121 degrees Fahrenheit, smashing the previous record of 113 degrees. And California's Death Valley has the hottest place in North America that day was last month. So like I said, how did the fire start? Likely by lightning. That's usually where these things start. 85% of the time is what we're looking at. Half of the fires are started by lightning, but those fires account for more than 85% of wildfire destruction. The other half are human caused. So 50-50 on here. And why are they out of control? Weather. Now, I remember me and one of our other listeners here, Greg Ertl, who we were on a project in Santa Fe, California. I'm sorry, Santa Fe, New Mexico, back in, I believe it was 2004, and they were doing a controlled burn out there of the forest just around Los Alamos. Probably Todd Conklin probably has a story about this. And we were out mountain biking. We were having fun, doing up in the woods, out by Taos, New Mexico. And they had advertised, hey, we're going to have a controlled burn all week. And on that Saturday, I think it was, we noticed that they were having a controlled burn. You could see it from the top of the mountain where we were actually a mesa where we were. And about an hour later, we're on top of this thing. We see it. An hour later, we start to see the big bombers come through with the water and trying to put out the fire. And before you know, we had, lots and lots of fire out there. And it was a major issue. Now, what we had that was my experience of wildfires and also controlled burns in South Jersey when I was in college. Very few wildfires up here, even though there have been some over the years. Minor compared to this. So that's my experience here. There's a lot of smoke, a lot of everything else. Now, what happened was all of this smoke and everything, like I said, it's going out to the Midwest, as far as the Midwest, but the concentrations of this are all along the eastern seaboard here from Virginia Beach north, which pretty interesting there with that. So now we get into the idea of PM 2.5. What is PM 2.5? So what is PM? Stands for particulate matter or particulate pollution, the term for a mixture of solid particles and liquid droplets in the air. Some particles, such as dust, dirt, soot, or smoke, are large or dark enough to be seen with the naked eye. Others are so small they can be detected using an electron microscope. So, for example, you have, it's basically from two different things. PM10, which are inhalable particles, diameters that are about 10 micrometers or microns and smaller, and PM 2.5, fine particles with diameters that are generally 2.5 microns or smaller. So, again, how big is the average body hair from your head, a hair on your head? We're not talking other areas. No, this is a family show. The human hair is about 70 microns in diameter. So PM10 is 1/7 the size of a human hair. All right. And PM 2.5 is a hell of a, whatever the math works out. It's 2.5. So it's like 30, over 30 times smaller than, right, 1/30th the size of a human hair, right, of the diameter. That's basically what it is. Out of curiosity, it escapes you how far down the human eye could. How small can the human eye see, right? How small? So the human eye could see, I think, down to 0.1 millimeters, which is how many microns? Can the human see? Yes. So 10 microns is basically what the limit of a human eyesight is. So we're looking at a lot smaller than what the human eyesight can see with here with the PM 2.5. I know I Google this stuff now because we don't know where this is going when I start talking. God knows what the hell I'm going to say. So what happens is PM, right? So particulate matter. Now, if you're on a job site where they are making dust and you're required to do ambient air sampling or air monitoring with ambient air monitoring equipment, today was a good day that you go out there with a camera and start taking pictures as to what the conditions are. That's what I had my clients do to do ambient air monitoring. I said, go out, picture of the sky, and with as a backdrop to your monitoring equipment. Because a year from now, when someone says, "What the bleep happened?" they're going to forget about these Canadian wildfires. They're going to be too busy, these regulators, watching YouTube and Pluto TV, those Star Trek episodes there. They're going to be busy doing that and looking at shameful thing. They're not going to remember that there was a wildfire and we got smoke from that. They're not going to remember it. All right. And you're going to need some kind of proof to show that there was, look, this is what the conditions were. Don't believe me? Well, then you do so at your own risk. These particles come in many sizes. What are the sources? Construction site fires. So I'm reading off of EPA.gov. So if we remember, inhalable, respirable dust is 10 microns and smaller. So let's remember, 10 microns and smaller, inhalable dust. So the smaller the particle, the deeper it goes into your lungs, and the more surface area it has, and it is more, because of the more surface area, there's more opportunity for chemical reactions. Right? Does that make sense? That is why, you don't believe me? You go out there, and we talked about aluminum fires. You take a aluminum can and you hold a flame to it, nothing's going to happen. You take that aluminum can, and I'm not going to say how you do it, but you grind it down into a fine powder. You go out and go whoosh with it. Guess what? You're going to have a massive explosion. Don't believe. We've all seen aluminum fires. Jim, I've never seen an aluminum fire in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. Have you ever heard of the space shuttle? You know, we used to have this thing called the space shuttle. And we had rocket boosters on the side, and there were solid rocket boosters. They had separation motors that used to blow the boosters off. That was solid rocket fuel. 40% ground aluminum, 40% ammonium perchlorate or another oxidizer like that, but usually ammonium perchlorate, 20% some kind of binder that gets thrown in there, and now you have solid rocket fuel. I'm not revealing any national security secrets here, but essentially, that's what you have with the solid rocket fuel. It's an aluminum fire. So finer particles. Guess what? You got more opportunity for actions and everything else. Imagine that getting into your lungs. You have all different types of effects here. We're going to talk about in a minute. Now, EPA regulates inhalable particles. Particles of sand and large dust, which are greater than 10 micrometers or 10 microns, are not regulated by the EPA. So, what are some health effects of this particulate matter, PM? The size of particles is directly linked to their potential for causing health problems. Small particles less than 10 micrometers in diameter pose the greatest problems because they can get deep in your lungs, and some may even get into bloodstream. Exposure to such particles can affect both your lungs and your heart. Numerous scientific studies have linked particle pollution exposure to a variety of problems, including, and I'm going to add this, not including and not limited to, premature death in people with heart or lung disease, non-fatal heart attacks, irregular heartbeats, aggravated asthma, decreased lung function, increased respiratory symptoms such as irritation of the airways, coughing, or difficulty breathing. People with heart or lung diseases, children and older adults are most likely to be affected. And blah, 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 goes on. What about the high PM levels, particulate matter? We're talking 2.5 microns. The main cause of reduced visibility or haze in parts of the United States, including many of our treasured national parks. Okay, great. Environmental damage. Depending on the chemical composition, PM contributes to acid rain, changing the nutrient balance of coastal waters and large rivers, depleting the nutrients in soil, damaging sensitive forests and farm crops, affecting the diversity of ecosystems, and among other things. So that is what happens. Now, we have in this country what are called National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NAQS, NAAQS. And speaking with particulate matter, you have PM10 and PM5. There are 6 ambient air quality, 5 they list here when they talk about air quality index. I thought it was 6. Hold on. I could be wrong. How many NAQS are there? Again, you can all check this out on. There are 6. Why does the EPA list 5 on their website? I don't know. So NAQS, there are 6 common air pollutants known as criteria air pollutants, meaning that they are indications of other air quality issues. You have particulate matter, right, which we're talking about, ozone, O3, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and lead, the 6. All right. Now, they monitor for all of these, the 5. That's probably why they list them this way on the website here. Right. They monitor for the 5, right, on the website I am looking at is airnow.gov. Probably they don't monitor for lead. All right, but there are 6 NACs out there, criteria for pollutants. So, and there are many, I think it's 187 HAPs, hazardous air pollutants. But anyway, I'm not an air guy. I know about the air. I'm not necessarily an air permitting guy or Clean Air Act guy, because I tell you what, you can make a whole freaking career just on parts of that law. All right. I know people who have done it. So, what next? All right. So, how are they the EPA develops these things and everything else. So particulate matter. Okay. So standards. All right. The standards are this. You have, right? So we talk about what is legally hazardous and what is contaminated and everything else. We talk about legally hazardous. That means that there was some type of a law or regulatory process that sets a standard. And that's a discussion for another day. If you want to read about lead, I would suggest you go out there and find the classic book. And it's hard to find. I got it cheap for years. It was I couldn't find it. Was Poison in the Pot by the author was Wadeen, and he talks about the history of getting lead-based paint laws and things of that nature passed in this country. Very interesting read. But anyway, long process to get regulations there. So the National Ambient Air Quality for PM 2.5 is 35 micrograms per meter cubed of air. That's 35 micrograms per meter cubed. Okay, so that means it is 0.035 milligrams per meter cubed in air. So for those folks who are not used to hearing this, right, that's for a 24-hour standard. Now, for those folks, and for the annual standard for PM 2.5 is 12 micrograms per meter cubed. So average over a 3-year period, right? And that's with real-time monitoring, I would think, is 0.012 milligrams per meter cubed. I got to write this out to keep this straight. And that's for a 3-year annual over 3 years. So this is a rolling average. Now, for those people who are not used to seeing micrograms or milligrams or anything like that, what is a milligram? A milligram is 1/1000th of a gram. Now you're going to say to me, "Well, Jim, no, I'm from the United States. So how big is a freaking gram?" A gram is that you go in and you go out and get your average sugar packet, you throw it on a scale, that's 4 grams, roughly 3 to 4 grams, depending on the brand and everything else. Now you take that and you divide it by 4. So you put it on like a surface, like a mirror, and you put it out on there nice and flat. And then you take a razor blade and you divide it into 4 sections. That is 1 gram. Now you go and let's say that you're going to take that same razor blade and you're going to put it in a straight line, and you're going to go out there on that mirror and you're able to divide it into 1,000 pieces. One of those 1,000 pieces is a milligram. All right. Now, how big is a microgram? Is if you take that same gram on that mirror and you take a razor blade and you are able to divide that gram into 1,000,000 pieces, one of those is 1 microgram. So you're looking at an exceedingly small particle here. I know I'm going to get complaints over that description. So you're allowed 35 of those little tiny particles over 1 cubic meter. That's 1 meter, which 1 meter is 39.39 inches by 39 by 39 inches by 39 by 39 inches cube, and you have 1 in there. Now, some would argue, well, that's too small of a standard. Okay, we're not going to argue that, what have you. And that is what we have with that. Now, we have all of this stuff coming out on the air quality index. And I had to dig a little bit to find out how they come up with these numbers. All right. And it's actually pretty simple. Why they don't put this into the explanations on any of these websites or anything else, I don't know. And I tell you what, somebody like Jay Allen could probably make it even real simple that we could describe it on the air really easily, right? Or any of the other number. So I'm going to use my limited oral abilities and my articulation abilities here to try to explain this to you. So we had these monitors, like the one we visited in our community, me and my 8-year-old daughter, right? We went out and I showed her, we didn't get up to it, it's behind the fence. And they monitor for things, for real-time things. And no, these are easy to monitor for in real time. You can pick up a real-time meter and measure for these. The lead, which is the 6 and 8 NACs out there, you actually have to do, so if you're going to sample for that, that requires a laboratory analysis where you're going to be collecting samples on a mixed cellulose ester membrane, right? And for industrial hygiene, it's a 37 millimeter cassette. For that type of sampling, it's going to be an 8.5 by 11, roughly, this size mixed cellulose ester cassette. That goes out for laboratory. I believe that it's analyzed through absorbance. Could be wrong on there. Been many years since I've done the analysis myself. Now, so they're able to monitor for ozone, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide in real time. And we have from airnow.gov. So this is not copyrighted. This is not Jimmy Posel coming up with a conspiracy theory or anything like that. This is of the official government data. You have ozone, right, in parts per million. They have an 8-hour and a 1-hour average. And they have levels here. Good, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. They break this down into 6 different categories. So, and they have it broken down by, you can go and look it up and everything else. Now, you look under particulate matter, and I'm looking at this here. This is AirNow. Let me give the website. AirNow. Oh, I can't do it. Airnow.gov. And the title of this document is Technical Assistance Document for the Reporting of Daily Air Quality, the Air Quality Index, AQI, here. And they give you all of these numbers here. So for particulate matter, 2.5, that's what they've been reporting on the news. And this is on the 24-hour sampling scale, meaning here, right? PM 2.5, good, 0 to 12 microns per cubic meter. That is your permissible exposure limit, for lack of a better word, or National Ambient Air Quality Standard. 0 to 12 micrograms per meter cubed. And if it goes from 12.1 to 35.4 microns per meter cubed, all right, 12.1 to 35.4, that is considered a moderate hazard, meaning unusually sensitive people should consider reducing prolonged or heavy exertion. Then we have the next level, right? Level 3. And these are all color-coded. So good would be green. Yellow would be moderate. Now we're getting into the orange range, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups, right? So 35 to 55 microns per meter cubed. Okay. Those are with people with heart or lung disease, older adults, children, and people with lower socioeconomic status should reduce prolonged or heavy exertion. Now, we know from the Gulf oil spill study, which I'm a part of, right? Complete disclosure, that the people that we were forced to use on those cleanups, right? forced by the government to use to clean out the welfare rolls, trying to get people into work, getting experience. All good things, right? All good things, and we're trying to build people up on this program. A lot of those people did not, even under Obamacare, do not have access to health care. So we put people out there who, a lot of them, I trained 5,000 of them. So I don't want to hear that I don't know what's going on. Severe literacy issues, educational issues, and everything else. We put them out there to do oil cleanups. We trained them. We told them. And everything else, we were audited by BP, and everything was copacetic. Everything was, we were one of the few approved contractors to do training out there when I worked with another company, and everything else. So, again, lack of access to healthcare. That's what the Gulf oil spill study has indicated to us, and that is what these folks are coming down with major health problems, some of them, because of this, and that is outside the norm, right? So we know that's why they say lower socioeconomic status. Again, this is all scientific here. And then you have the next level, which is unhealthy. All right, so you have unhealthy for sensitive groups. Now we have just plain old unhealthy, and that would be in the red range. All right. And people with heart and or lung disease, older adults, children, or people of lower socioeconomic status, this is 55 to 150.4, and people should avoid prolonged or heavy exertion. Everyone else should reduce prolonged heavy exertion. Then you have the, it goes from the red to the purple, right? Or, dark purple, deep purple. I'm sorry, I cannot use royalty any music that's not royalty free here, because I can throw on a different song for every one of these. So with the purple, it's between 150 microns and 200 and 250.4 microns. I'm sorry, 150 micrograms per meter to 250 micrograms per meter. That's very unhealthy. So people with heart or lung disease, older adults, children, and people of lower socioeconomic status should avoid all physical activity outdoors. Everyone else should avoid prolonged or heavy exertion. And then the other one is this: hazardous. That's 250 micrograms up to 500.4 micrograms per meter cubed. Everyone should avoid all physical activity outdoors. People with heart or lung disease, older adults, children, and people of lower socioeconomic status should remain indoors, keep activities low. So unlike the COVID lockdowns, if that situation occurs, 301 to 500, guess what? Stay in your home. That's what it comes down to with this. So if the AQI is higher than 500, it's called AQI, and we're going to talk about air quality index. Now, here we go. And they have this. All right. So you can look on the document, and they give you a rather, it's not a big deal formula. It's pretty straightforward formula here. And they give you a calculation to calculate the index with this. So with all the other data in there, and it's factored together, they can run it through an Excel spreadsheet, and they come up with a number. And all of these numbers are thrown in here. So right now, I'm going to go right here to New City, New York, with the air monitoring station on South Mountain Road. And I'm putting in the thing here. And where are we here? Okay. The current air quality is 325. All right, so 325 going on to our monitor is hazardous. That means stay indoors, is what it comes down to. Stay indoors. So that's what it is. Now, let's look at over in New York City. New York. What are we at? New York City is at 325 also. So we have Virginia Beach, and we're at Wednesday, June 7th, 8:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Virginia Beach is at 185. Pretty, so it's unhealthy. Let's look at others. Chicago. And we are going from airnow.gov. This is where this is at. And we are at moderate. It's at PM 2.5 level is at 883, right? Is the AQI number on this. And, what are we looking at for tomorrow? 109.56 for New City, New York. We're looking at tomorrow. It's still going to be unhealthy into the red. And that's the forecast air quality index. And we got stuff going on all the way out here and everything where the breaking point is. And we do have a listener up in New Hampshire that I know. And she is a lifelong friend, very good friend, who will be getting married in the very near future. That is basically the break point is Western New Hampshire, down by the Massachusetts. So pretty interesting here with this. Any questions, anybody? I'm not seeing anything in the chat box here. So that's what we got going on here with this. Now, people are now breaking out the masks. No, this was one of the headlines I saw. Though I hope you didn't throw out that mask from the COVID because you should be wearing it. We had this conversation today in the training class I was in, where we were talking about respiratory protection and how you as a supervisor need to be looking at and auditing respirator selection. And if your contractor, your subcontractor is out there what's the word I'm looking for? If your contractor is out there with the hold on, with everything going on over there, right? With the wearing respirators, because this is what happens. You need to audit. If you're a contractor, general contractor, you have to audit the subcontractors and employees under you. And a lot of these contractors get, especially, and you'd be surprised, some of the big jobs I work on where you have small-time contractors, small businesses, 10 people or less, even, they're wearing the wrong respirators. So we have to go in and we have to describe to the general contractor exactly how we are going to be, what to look for. So, again, they're going out there, wear that mask, that COVID mask you've been wearing, you'll be fine. Let's say that you're a certified safety professional, certified industrial hygienist, and you are in a working environment. You tell somebody you have here a respiratory hazard. You tell them to wear a mask, and it's a non-NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health Administration certified mask. What do you think is going to happen to you? I think you're going to be in deep, as the Romanians say, rohat with this. You're going to have a problem. So, so again, if you have respiratory hazard, I just read you through all whole thing through the AQI index and the documents from the government here. If you have a major health problem, don't go outside if you're in one of these areas like I am. Don't do it, What the problem here is this, with this. If you have health issues to that point. Even putting on a mask, little tiny paper mask, right? I don't have any sitting around here anymore, but even a little tiny paper mask. No, I don't. I had them here yesterday. Oh, hold on. I got one. Hang on. This was at the bottom of my, yeah, I got a Safety Wars baseball jersey. It's pretty cool. This was sitting at the bottom of my briefcase, right, from last year. N95. So even these filtering face piece respirators, these N95 respirators and everything there, right? No, they're NIOSH. If they're NIOSH rated, guess what? They're a respirator, legally a respirator. Non-NIOSH rated, there is no standard on them. They can make them out of anything. So if you put everybody in NIOSH respirators, you're going to have a lot of people out there with respiratory issues that are wearing this and other health issues. They're going to have a problem. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. Now, the other thing is this: with the mask, legally, an employer hands you a mask. What don't they have to do? They don't have to send you for medical monitoring. They don't have to send you for fit testing. They don't have to give you 1910-134 training, any of that, right? So this is where, you get the situation, well, put on the mask with the COVID, right? Well, you don't need to have a physical or anything with this. This is why why they made the mask, in my opinion, why they made the mask recommendation versus NIOSH rated N95 recommendations. You do that at work, you're a certified safety professional or a certified industrial hygienist, you're going to have a problem. I can tell you that. Be lucky you keep your credential, number one, and you're even luckier if you don't go to jail and get charged criminally here. So now you're going to say, Jim, you mean people could have a seizure with this? Or the other imitation non-NIOSH mask? Yeah, guess what? Yeah, you can have a seizure with that. You can have a health issue. Well, I don't believe you. Well, guess what? I didn't believe me until the first week of April 2021. So we all know here, if you're a longtime listener, we had just started the podcast in March 2021, beginning of this. And that was before my basement got flooded and the studio was on the other part of the basement, right? We go over there. My mother-in-law had a massive heart attack and died on the front porch. All right. We did CPR, did everything that we were supposed to by the book. And as we know, I've been putting off a CPR conversation here because there's some controversial things that came out. But on the whole debate. So we go, she passes away, wasn't successful with CPR. Next week, and again, this was all around Easter, and Easter week, Easter is a very bad holiday for me. A lot of bad things have happened in my life around Easter, and this was one of them. And in my whole family's life, we'll say that. And we go to the funeral, which was the 31st. No, which was the first week of April. Well, however it worked out, it was Wednesday. And we were having issues because of finding a funeral home over Easter, finding a Reformed minister. She was Dutch Reformed, trying to find a Dutch Reformed minister around that time. Not too many around here. And then it's a height of compounded with the height of COVID and everything else. So there were not, if this were under normal circumstances, we would have had pallbearers, right, supplied by the family. However, what happened was there were only two pallbearers, two men and women for that. Women could be pallbearers. Two men that were available for pallbearers. was a traditional funeral. So what we ended up doing was we got it from the funeral home. It says, well, we had to, okay, great. Where am I going with this, Jim? Everybody had to be in masks. Not NIOSH, in masks, according to the governor. What ended up happening was the one person who looked relatively healthy, he put on a paper mask and had some type of a seizure while they were carrying the coffin out of the church. The coffin, he dropped the freaking coffin on the ground. No damage done, the coffin a little bit scratched up, but that was about it. Very traumatic for everybody who was there, right? Have this happen. And but they regained control. And, I didn't know what to do because here I am with the mourners, with my wife, who was obviously very upset that her mother died, trying to comfort my 2 children and the rest of the family here. And then this happens. Now, do I come? They're all freaking out. Now, do I help them? Do I go do this? Do I, it's a nightmare scenario for everybody involved. Except for Nancy, she probably would have been laughing over this one. But anyway, they, my mother-in-law was Nancy, if you couldn't follow. So we ended up going and everything finished right. So I said, I'm going to have to use this as a learning activity for my safety training. This is the reason why we do physicals. Now, and medical monitoring and training and everything else. And, you hear this baloney that, we're voluntary use of respirator, therefore we have no responsibility. Guess what? You better sign that Appendix D of the Respiratory Protection Standard. You better talk to your employees because they talk about the limitations of respiratory protection and care, and you had to do training. Just because it's voluntary use doesn't mean that there's no training involved. So what ended up again, with the ambient air quality being what it is, especially in my neighborhood, 325, now they're telling people to put on masks, they go outside. Guess what? These people probably shouldn't even go outside. Don't even go outside. If you can't wear a mask, if you all have all these health issues, don't go outside, dude. Don't put on that mask. Be very leery. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it wouldn't be my recommendation here. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. So we talked about the whole hour on PM 2.5. And for whatever reason, this did not go into the streamers, but we do have a recording of it on video. So we're going to do that as soon as this program is over. I don't know how much time I have left here on the program. Let me see where the clock is. And of course, I can't find it. Yeah, well, figures. Okay, here it is, my dashboard. Where are we? I got to constantly refresh it. So we got 4 minutes left. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. So, again, a little commentary on yesterday in the training, the HAZOFfer training. If you need safety training, come to me. You're in the Metro New York area. I'll even travel. I'll do a lot of this stuff can be handled remotely via Zoom. I'm able to do that. 845-269-5772 or jim@safetywars.com. You can get us on all the platforms. Jim Posel. Go to safetywars.com. I have links up for things, but we're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on a lot of other stuff. I have been working on a book right now for sale. My second book. My first book, I've been thinking about reissuing it, but it's probably going to be as part of a larger collection of stuff on disaster preparation and disaster response. But I've been working on a book and some other online resources right now. I'll hold off on giving any more detail than that or a release date or anything like that, but we're working on it. Outside of everything else, I think my life has seemed to have calmed down a little bit more. we're going to, that's where we're going here. So be careful out there, guys. Remember, get along with everybody. Get along at work. Say hello. Everything else out there. And I just want to tell everybody, I know I appreciate the listenership. I appreciate the support. I appreciate some of the criticism out there. I know it's well-intentioned. Most of it is. If it isn't well-intentioned, then you know where you could go. So for Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.